Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esther Lynn welcomes you to a brand new edition of BTL. Happy Thursday to us all. And what a Thursday it is. We're coming off of a damn good UFC 314 event. We got a weekend off from the UFC, which is always good, coming off of a very good event like we just had in Miami. It gives us some time to digest the big moments. We have Wrestlemania this weekend. Good times, good vibes all around. And very happy to be back here on the program. Before we introduce the competitors, wanted to shout out my son Grayson, who turns 12 today. So happy birthday to him. He's just the best. And yes, the horn sound. We'll celebrate later on with the fam. But right now it's about BTL. So let us welcome in the combatants first. Mr. No Gray Area, the hot take kid himself, the climber of all climbers from MMAfighting.com, Mr. Jed Meshew. Hello, sir. There he is. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Happy birthday, Grayson. What are you guys doing tonight? You got a cake? Going to the Charles Esther cheese of it all? What's the plan?
Nah, he can't do Chuck E. Cheese anymore. It's too big for it.
I don't even know if Chuck E. Cheese still exists.
It does. It does.
Oh.
There's actually one in Savannah. So, yeah.
I know where it is in Savannah because I can't imagine it's moved. So it's been there for 40 years.
They have like trampolines in Chuck E. Cheese now. It's come a whole long way, but yeah, he's a little too big for the Chuck E. Cheese land. But happy to welcome back to the program a man who was in the building in Miami for UFC 314 this past Saturday night. He's MMA Fighting's Road Warrior, our social media hero, Mr. José Youngs, live from New York. What's up, buddy?
I've never been to Chuck E. Cheese, but I bet
Wait, seriously?
it's more. I've never been to Chuck E. Cheese, but I bet it's more fun than watching UFC fights next to the President of the United States.
Wait, you've like actually never? Is that like not a thing in the North? Or
No, there was one in Rhode Island near CCRI. I just literally never went.
Huh.
I don't know why. None of my friends had birthday parties there. My parents never took us there. Nothing against it, but we had like Rhode Island at one point had like this. I assume they still do. They had this sick like skating rink, United Skates of America, that also had laser tag, that also had arcade games. So if you're gonna go to a birthday party, and it was like half a mile away, if you're gonna go to that area for a birthday party, you're going to United Skates of America. Shout out.
That is a terrific business name. We had a place
right.
called Roller World in the Boston area, which is very, very similar. Lots of birthday parties spent at Roller
we had
World.
Star Castle,
United States,
which may
of
actually
America
still just be there too, Mike.
Yeah, United States of America. Because Rhode Island is famously very small. Some say the smallest, and every school function or like every birthday from like 8 to 12 was there. And it was like you can't miss it. We also, Mike, you're from New England. Did you ever go to Lasergate?
Never went to Lasergate. Our favorite, we had Good Times Emporium, which was like just outside of Boston. That place freaking slapped, man.
So
what do you guys sell? Good Times.
No,
and we have a surplus of it.
There's a place that used to exist in Atlanta in the north suburbs that I would drive past every day when I went to work in the law office up there years ago. That was called Tropical Paradise Good Times Emporium. And buddy, you can guess that it's not a laser tag spot. So as soon as you said Good Times Emporium, I was like, ooh, different things going on here.
Yes. But see, we didn't have any tropical lead-in to Good Time Emporiums. This was just like a smoky pool room, but it also had like arcade games and basketball and all sorts of fun stuff.
Good Time Emporium.
Yeah, speaking of good times, I'm glad both of these guys are here because a little bit of breaking news. We've gotten a lot of messages about this. A lot of people have been asking for us to do something like this, and we were thinking about it for the Royal Rumble. It did not happen, but this weekend we're absolutely going to do it. We got the signed seal in delivery. we're going to do a WrestleMania watch party. And not just for one night, we're going to do it for 2 nights, which is very, very cool. Very laid back. Jed is actually going to join me Saturday night for night 1 for the CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins main event card. And Jose is actually going to join me for night 2 on Sunday for Cody Rhodes versus John Cena and much more. And like I said, this is going to be very laid back, very chill, going to be a good time. So 7 p.m. Eastern both nights on this here channel. We're going to have a little bit of fun watching some professional wrestling. Jed, how are you feeling?
One might even say it'll be a good time emporium for us. So
yes.
I'm excited. I will ask incisive questions about whatever the hell is going on because I don't know anything about what's going on. At this point, I think I know enough professional wrestlers to not be totally in the dark, but I don't know who's competing in the main event of the night I'm covering. I don't know what's going on there. So we're going to have a time.
Yes. Jose, you're excited.
Yeah, you might even see me eat pizza during it, and I haven't eaten pizza in a long time. So there you go.
Yeah,
Why are you anti-pizza? Is that why you didn't go to Chuck E. Cheese? Are you anti-pizza?
No, the best pizza.
You don't want rat pizza?
The best pizza in all of America is on Federal Hill, Custarda's Pizzas in Rhode Island. But when you're in New York, you kind of overloaded in pizza. It's like the first year I lived here, I ate my body weight in pizza, and then I was like, all right, let's not do this all the time.
So Jose made some pizza, and I'm sure some of the big winners on Saturday after UFC 314 ate some pizza or their favorite meal. Because
that's right.
Let's talk UFC 314. A lot happened. What a transition. Jose, let's bring you up on the screen because Jed and I were here in Command Center 4.0 watching UFC 314. You were in Miami at Kaseya Center in the building.
Mm-hmm.
How would you grade UFC 314 from that perspective? The crowd, the fights, the feeling in the arena, the storylines, all of it.
Ooh, interesting. I'm gonna preface this because I said this once before and people got very annoyed at me. I didn't get to go out and watch almost any of the fights in the arena because there were so many all the media, the fighters they brought back for media, it was just like one after the other, after the other, after the other. So I was watching fights out of the corner of my eye. I only got to go out for the very first fight of the night. It felt, there was clearly excitement because every time I showed up for the press conferences and stuff, there were fans lined up. It was not as, how would I phrase this? The buzz in the air for the press conferences and the weigh-ins and the fights was not as palpable as the last two. The first one was obviously Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. That was the first time they had gone back to Miami in 20 something years, so that was a big deal. Israel is a huge star. And then the next time they went back was the Sugar Sean show, and then they had Chito Vera. Obviously, Miami is very Latin-based, so he was a massive superstar, and that to this day is one of the loudest press conferences I have ever been to. You obviously also had Dustin Poirier on that card and a few other big names. But in terms of the hype, I feel like this was a really big card for diehard MMA fans. There was not a lot of crossover appeal. A lot of the conversations throughout the week, when fans I would run into, I would be going to media stuff, fans would see me and they'd be like, none of them asked me about the main event. It was all Chandler, Paddy, and then do you think Bryce Mitchell is going to beat John Silva? No one asked me about Pitbull. No one asked me about Yair. No one asked me about Dominic Reyes. No one asked me about Danny Gay, Sean Woodson. These are very elite fights. No one was asking me about it. It was Paddy, Chandler, and then is John Silva going to win? Is Bryce Mitchell going to lose? So the biggest pop of the night was very clearly the President of the United States. Take that for what you will, but it just the air was not the same. The hype surrounding the fights was not the same as the last two. Still a good crowd, just not nearly the level of the last two Miami events.
Jed, what say you? Because Jose makes an interesting point because the hardcore fans, we got our card, right? We got good fights. We were very high on this event, but the fans that the UFC is 100% catering towards, which is the casual audience, they got what they wanted too. They got John Silva, Bryce Mitchell. They got Paddy Pimblett's big moment. It was almost like everybody got what they wanted here. We got a good night of fights. We got storylines. We had meaningful things happen when we have been that's all we've been asking for for the last several weeks when we haven't been getting it. And the UFC got to promote an event that catered to the audience they are trying to get, and it was very successful in that end. So after having some time to reflect on UFC 314, what do you grade it overall?
I mean, it's an A minus, B plus, right? Like it did as well as that card probably could have done, right? Like maybe if you're like really nitpicking, you could say, they could have, tucked the elbow a little bit tighter on that spin or stuck the landing just a little bit more. But this was the card we wanted, right? We wanted them to put some time, put some effort into a real fight card. And then all of those fights delivered. Really, the only fight that sort of was a letdown was the Yair Rodriguez Patricio Pitbull fight. And I think there were some reasons that was probably a letdown, and it is what it is there. But the rest of the event, that was a little bit of a down spot, particularly when we were watching live. Everything else was money, right? Like John Silva did the damn thing. Dom Reyes came back, to establish himself as a legitimate 205er again. We got that fun story going in. The co-main event, Paddy Pimblett looked as good as he ever has. Not good enough to be in the top 15 at lightweight, according to some producers in this sport, but a very, very talented young man arrived. And then in the main event, Alexander Volkanovski, did a thing that nobody has ever done. And we could quibble with it. We could say, well, he didn't really win the belt back, but like he made history. And he did so in classic vintage Volkanovski fashion. Like, so it was top to bottom. This card was everything we wanted it to be. It delivered on basically all fronts. And so, I mean, this is an A, right? Like, this is just as clear of an A. This is the standard we wish the UFC would uphold time in and time out. And they haven't. That's just the truth. But this just is a reminder that when they do try, when they care, when they put forth real effort, they can deliver great nights like Saturday, because Saturday was a damn fine night.
The big story, as you mentioned, is Paddy Pimblett, Jed, even though he's not as good as Alexander Shabley in some people's minds. And we're going to obviously get to Alexander Volkanovski and what he accomplished on Saturday in round 2. But as we mentioned, Paddy just delivered on Saturday, Jed. He didn't just beat Michael Chandler. He beat the soul out of that man. He ran Michael Chandler over, left him bloody and battered before a mercy stoppage by the referee. This is everything he needed to do, man. And we've had some memorable moments in the octagon, Jed, some performances that we've talked about for a couple weeks after. Is what Paddy did on Saturday the most memorable thing that has happened in a fight in 2025 thus far, Jed?
Ooh, that's a fun way to phrase it. I'm going to go with no, but mainly just because I think the actual answer is John Silva. Like, to me, that feels more memorable just because of all the hype that was built into it and my like genuine concern that he might lose that fight. And instead he just, like, I was really confident Paddy was going to beat Michael Chandler. Maybe not to that extent, but I was very confident in him. I was very concerned that John Silva was about to lose, and instead he just delivered a pillar to post ass beating and a gnarly finish, like one of the better submission finishes of the year thus far. So I'll go with no, just because I think John Silva beat him on this event. But I'm open to the idea because, like, just looking down the board, what other like big finishes are there this year that are just like stand out unbelievable? I mean, I guess you could make the case that Makhachev absolutely destroying Moicano, like given the circumstances, is pretty memorable. But other than that, there's not like a ton. So it's right up there, certainly.
Yeah, like the only other big finish that came to mind that was maybe Yuri Jamal Hill, because that fight was great. And it was just like a big moment for Yuri and everything that went into that fight. Obviously, Mauricio Rufi's knockout win was awesome too, but like it just didn't get the shine it deserved in the aftermath, I guess. We didn't talk about it for weeks afterwards. This one, I feel like we're going to, Jose. Where does this rank so far in most memorable, talked about moments of 2025? What Paddy did. Plus, you get to look at it through different lenses. One, you were there, and two, you're a social media guy, so you see what's sort of trending right now when it comes to this stuff.
In terms of conversations, the most memorable things that have happened socially are, in no order, I'm just going to start from no particular order, was Israel Adesanya getting knocked out by Imavov. That was pretty big. Paul Hughes fighting Usman Nurmagomedov to a very competitive decision in the PFL. Probably Yuri knockout over Jamal, and then probably this one. And then I would kind of lump John Silva, because what he did in Seattle was also very, very, very started a lot of conversations. So I would just kind of lump John Silva. And then honestly, in terms of, it's not a surprise to anyone that watches MMA, but by far, like light years, there's like we have to remove it from the equation because it would skew the numbers. The bell curve would skew way too to the right in terms of social conversation. Was Magomed Ankalaev beating Alex Pereira in the way he did was not exciting, but my God, people are still talking about it on our social channels. That is by far, that fight week has generated more conversation from beginning to end than any other fight week we've had this year. And it's because Ankalaev won, and the reaction and I think it's more they're angry that he won because they're Pereira fans and the way he won. So yeah, I would say like those 5 or 6, but this is very clearly in the top 5, maybe top 2. Though Ankalaev and Paddy probably generated the most conversation for sure, though.
Jose, Paddy's in a big time spot right now. There is nothing off limits. There's nothing that would be shocking right now. You could book him against Charles Oliveira or Ilya Taporia, or even throw him in a title fight. Yeah. You could throw him in there with Colby Covington if you want, even though it seems like there is zero interest in that idea, despite the backstage quote unquote dust up between those two guys. So if you had the mighty pencil right now, how are you booking Paddy after this win?
In this world, in this world, is Islam staying at lightweight or is he going to welterweight?
This is your world. You can mold this world however you see fit.
I would do Paddy. I wouldn't hate Paddy and Charles at all. I really like that fight a lot because Charles is one of the most exciting fighters in the world, and he's very clearly going to be favored against Paddy. But Paddy, what he did to Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira couldn't do in Madison Square Garden. I selfishly just want to see that fight, but I'm trying to think of what fight makes sense. Khabib made a very good case for Islam just making the Arman fight again. Ilya came out on the Joe Rogan podcast saying that he's more interested in a fight with Paddy than anything else. If these fights make sense, I would probably do Ilya versus Islam, probably Paddy versus Charles, and Arman versus Gaethje. I don't know who Hooker fights. He's kind of the odd man out right now. He's also healing. So I think those 3 fights, I'm trying to make it sense because selfishly I want to see Paddy and Charles. So I'm going to work that way. But that's my 3 lightweight fights I would make.
Jed, where are you at? What's the fight? What's the move? Like, I know you can predict where you think the UFC might go with this, and then there's a place you would like to see as a fan, right? But if you were the advisor of one Patrick Pimblett and he called you and said, Jed, you're the director of fun here in MMA, and I trust your judgment. I want you to, the minister of fun, guide me.
The viceroy of fear.
Yes, guide me in the direction I need to be guided in. What are you telling Paddy to shoot for if he called you and said, advise me, sir? Because like I said, nothing's off limits here. I think he has a shot at pretty much everything at this point.
I think Paddy should shoot for Charles Oliveira. Like that, to me, that is the fight that he should attempt to get. It's also a fight I'm like pretty interested in now after Saturday because Paddy's has just consistently looked better. And as good as Charles Oliveira is, both historically and even still currently, he's got a lot of miles on him. Like he is probably the most beatable of the names that are available to Paddy at this point in time, just because like he's slowing down a little bit. Charles is still extremely good, but he's definitely, I think he's definitely not at his prime anymore. And so you beat Charles, you get a title fight. If I'm in Paddy's corner, that's the fight I'm saying this is the one we should be pushing for. Charles is really, I think, misplaying his hand and trying to hold out for a title fight that just doesn't seem like it's going to come for him. And so he's going to have to fight somebody. And if I'm Charles, okay, fighting Paddy also seems like the best outcome for me since I'm not going to get that title fight. Running it back with Arman, probably not like great for him. I doubt Ilya actually does fight him. So I think that fight would make sense. If I were in charge, I would do, and I think like the best way to do it is actually probably not what I would do. The best way to do it is Ilya and Arman fight, and then Paddy and Charles fight. And, Makachev hangs around and waits, but we'll see. I think we are going to end up getting Paddy versus Charles. I think that probably will happen. I think Ilya
in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, sounds reasonable, honestly. I think Ilya should not get a title fight, but the public is really pushing for it at this point, so that seems very possible. So unless Islam moves up, unless Jack Della beats Bilal and Islam moves up, in which case, if that's the case, Ilya versus Paddy for the interim lightweight belt. Book it. We're done. Don't have to talk about it again. That's the fight to make for sure. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Paddy versus Charles is what will happen and probably what should happen, even if I personally think now is the time to just do Paddy versus Ilya, because why not?
It's just such a big fight right now. And who would have thunk it? Like after UFC 282, when Paddy's getting ready to fight Jared Gordon and him and Ilya are getting after it on stage, and then that moment in the hotel lobby in London, like we all were like, if this fight happens, Ilya just kills this man. This is not even a competitive fight. And now all these years later and all these performances later, we start to look at Paddy in a little bit of a different light. So I know he hasn't sold over everybody. Trust me, I've looked at some of the comments on some of the thoughts we've had, especially on the ranking show. Not everybody sold on Paddy, but I'm sold right now, and I was one of those early detractors, that's for sure. But we'll see where Paddy goes. We'll see where this division goes. Let's talk about the UFC featherweight division and what Alexander Volkanovski accomplished on Saturday in the main event. Point for round one goes to José Youngs. Back at it, back on the board. Well done. All right, let's get into the way UFC 314 ended. Alexander Volkanovski, once again, the UFC featherweight champion of the world, defies all the statistics. Fighters over 35, 155 and below don't win title fights. Volkanovski was able to do that. Fighters who've been knocked down back-to-back fights don't win title fights. Alexander Volkanovski got that done. Defeats Diego Lopes. I thought 49-46 was the way to go. I know Jed scored at 50-45, 48-47s. I mean, either way, there's just no world where you could score that fight for Diego Lopes. So Volkanovski goes in there, survives a knockdown in round two, gets back up, gets the job done. So Jed, we'll begin with you here in round number two. Biggest takeaway from Volkanovski's statistic, defying win over Diego Lopes in Miami.
Biggest takeaway. I have unpopular takeaways that I don't think I want to voice because it's just a problem. The biggest takeaway is I will go with the easier one so we don't have to get bogged down in this fight right now. Alexander Volkanovski is one of the 10 best fighters who've ever lived. That's a take I had prior to this fight. After the fight, the take is confirmed. Because like one of the things, and I've mentioned this many times before on air, one of the things that really separates like all-time greats is their longevity, their ability to succeed past their prime. Because a lot of fighters can have, be flash in the pan isn't the right word, but they can have these monumental rises and then sort of peter out and never kind of get back there. I think everybody should be on the same page that Volkanovski is no longer his best form. Like that's just how time works. And despite that, he came in and pitched a nearly flawless performance against a dangerous top 5 guy. I think we could quibble. I think we can pick nits. I think that Diego Lopes is a flawed challenger in some ways. But the big point is not any of that. The big point is that Volk doesn't have his fastball anymore, and he is still out there pitching shutouts with his off-speed game. And that is a testament to his ability, and that is really a clear sign of his greatness, because Anderson Silva, John Jones, George St. Pierre, Jose Aldo, these are guys who have done that for years after their best, they are still getting out there and getting significant wins. And we never know how a fighter's going to age. I think Volk is clearly in that back nine part, and he has got a big, significant win. So credit to Alexander Volkanovski, because it was pretty damn cool.
What say you, Jose? I know there's a lot going on in Miami, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fights, a lot of action backstage. Biggest takeaway from what Volkanovski accomplished on Saturday?
Oh man, that I agree with everything Jed said. I've also said for a long time the biggest skill, like the most underrated skill set that people don't talk about. Like everyone talks about IQ and grappling and striking and cardio and all that stuff, but I think what separates like that upper echelon group of fighters that'll fight for the title, or as Jed said, be one of the 10 greatest fighters of all time, is your ability to fight through pain and chaos. Because you can just keep pitching perfect games, but the second that someone throws a wrench into your plans, how do you overcome that? John Jones is the master of that. Same as George St. Pierre, famously got head kicks by GSP. Anderson Silva's fought through all kinds of things. I feel like the only guys that we never really saw that from in the UFC were Habib, and then really DJ when he was at flyweight, Demetrius Johnson. They just continuously just dominated everyone, and that's another level of dominance that Volkanovski's not done that. He's had, even the fights that he wins, they're wars. Like the Yair fight was a tough fight. The Korean Zombie fight was a tough fight. He's not going out there and just mauling dudes like 50-43. He knows he's been in a fight after all of his performances, and he turns around and gets back in there. But man, when he got, was it the second round he got dropped by that right or left? I can't even remember yet. That was unbelievable. I didn't think Diego was going to knock him out, but when he went up and then popped back up and then continued fighting, man, that was impressive. And then do the same thing in like the fourth round. I think he got clipped real bad with that cut and couldn't see, and then circled around and then came back on the fifth and just kept fighting. We know Volk can do this. We saw this when he was famously in that guillotine against Brian Ortega. And then he's had all that in just one of the greatest fights you will ever see in Perth, Australia. We know he can do it, but that doesn't last forever. So the fact that he broke all of these records, especially age-wise, and he's still able to do that against a guy that, like, I interviewed Dan Ige, and he said Diego Lopes' power is just different. Like, he's fought the heaviest hitters at featherweight, but Diego tries to punch through you. He doesn't have that snap. He's trying to like punch the wall behind you. Your head just happens to be in the way. And Volk said himself, like, he has stitches in his mouth. He can't eat. So, man, Volkanovski is just so good. He's so good. I'm still a Jose Aldo truther. I think Jose Aldo is the greatest featherweight of all time. Volkanovski would agree. Max Holloway would agree. But now I'm not going to argue if you want to say Volkanovski is the greatest, because that was so impressive what he did.
I'm glad you brought this up. And Jed, I know you love this conversation because this is all so subjective, and the GOAT and pound for pound talk, it's usually all silly and dumb. This is a different kind of a case, in my opinion, because this has just become this big debate at 145. And at one point I looked at this debate and I was like, you guys are all ridiculous for even suggesting this. Like, people were saying Israel Adesanya is the greatest middleweight of all time, considering Anderson Silva is there. People were saying Kamaru Usman is one title defense away from catching George St. Pierre for being the greatest welterweight of all time, which is ridiculous. Like, those are just asinine and make no sense. This is Alexander Volkanovski and Jose Aldo. This is a very close race in most people's eyes. And in my opinion, after reflection, Volk is either neck and neck with Aldo, or he is a win over Movsar Evloev away from being neck and neck with Jose Aldo. Maybe even surpassing Jose Aldo if he wins that fight. So, Jose, in your eyes, what does Volkanovski have to do in order for this to no longer be a conversation, no longer be a debate? Look, Jose Aldo, what he accomplished, unbelievable, all-time great, but Volkanovski's just better. He's just accomplished more.
If he goes 2-0 this year like he wants to, I'm comfortable calling him the greatest featherweight of all time. I think he would pass the title defense record too, if not past it, like he's right there. I think if he hands Movsar his first loss and then either beats Yair or beats John Silva or a guy like Pico that has this hype around him, and he basically cleans out the division a second time, I don't think we're talking about just Volk being the greatest featherweight of all time. You have to start having that conversation of, is he in the top 10, top 5 greatest fighters ever? Is he on the Mount Rushmore of the UFC? Is he on the Mount Rushmore of MMA? Because there's nothing left. Like, if he retired right now, there's nothing left for him to prove. If he goes 2-0, I'm comfortable in saying he's the greatest featherweight of all time, for sure.
Jed, where are you at with this? Because I know this is one that's going to be tough for Volk to really move the goalpost for you. I mean, you revere Jose Aldo in such a way, and I understand that.
I do want to say Jose Aldo is one of my 3-4 favorite fighters on planet Earth.
Right.
But Volk is so good at fist fighting.
Yeah, I honestly think the gap is way closer than I thought it was on Saturday.
Yeah.
The more that I've thought about it, I still have Aldo there, but like Jose said, if you want to at least make an argument for Volk, like, I will listen to you now and I will not call you a fool. Jed, you may not be the same, but what does Volk need to do? Does he just, is this all about the title defense numbers at this point? This is all about the statistics. He's got to get to double digits in order for this conversation to change for you.
We can have the conversation if he gets 2 more title defenses. So we're clear, if he does get 2 more title defenses, the conversation will still end with Jose being the GOAT. But we could start having the conversation. But like, I don't make the rules. Like, Jose has 9 title defenses and Volk has 5. Like, if he gets to 2 more and he has 7, then the conversation can absolutely be had in earnest. And and at that point, that is when I will proffer that, yeah, he does technically have 7, but also 2 of those came after losing the belt to a dude he never beat. And that's not his fault, but that is absolutely part and parcel of this. I don't think there's a person on planet Earth who thinks that if the aliens came down and said, pick a 145 fighter to defend the honor of the planet, we're not putting Ilia Topuria's ass in that ring to fight for us. Like, it is that Volk can only do what he can do, and what he has done has been exceptional. A top 10 fighter of all time. Jose Aldo has been critically underrated by everybody who became a fan when Conor McGregor rose.
Yes.
That's just that is honestly the story here, is that the people who became fans in 2016 and thereabouts and primarily know Jose Aldo as the guy who got by Conor did not see the 9 title defenses that predated that, and don't give credit to, like, this doesn't count to his featherweight greatness, obviously, but what he's doing at bantamweight is categorically fucking insane. Like, you have to imagine that in like 6 years, Volkanovski drops down to bantamweight and is still like a top 15 fighter. That's like the parallel that's going on. That has nothing to do with the featherweight. The featherweight falls to Jose Aldo has 9 title defenses, and people try to rip his opposition. And it's basically like he beat Mark Hominick is like the one thing people are like, that's a garbage win or whatever, because the rest of them are hitters. And like, you don't have to listen to me. Listen to all of the smartest people in this space are all on board with this. We're all like, yeah, we just watched Jose Aldo fight and we understand what happened. And because he started so young, youngest champion of all time, like his career peak came a little bit earlier. If he gets 2 more, I'm happy to put it, we can have a conversation about it. But 5-9, man, the measure of greatness is beating the best dudes in the world, and that's it. The best guys in the world are the dudes who are fighting for the belt. 5-9, rings matter. He needs 2 more to enter the conversation. And part of me, frankly, thinks it's a little weird that we're all like, a number of people were just like, oh, he beat Diego Lopes. That's the greatest featherweight of all time. When like that seems weird to me. Not that that's a bet. Like, that's a great win, an exceptional performance. But like, this is the thing that got him over the hump. Diego Lopes isn't even like the 4th best featherweight active. It's just a top 5 win, which is great. But it was not beating Movsar. Like, I would feel better about it, frankly, if it was beating Movsar, who is undeniably like the 2nd best featherweight on planet Earth right now. It's just, it feels so much to me that people either just don't remember Jose Aldo or they just really want to forget about him for whatever reason. and anoint Volk because they like him, because they love him. And we can anoint him. We can call him one of the 10 best fighters of all time. And you can even say he is better than Jose Aldo. That if the prime versus prime, those two guys locked horns, he is better. He is more technically skilled. I'm not sure I agree with you, but I am open to that conversation. But he has simply not accomplished what Jose Aldo has. That is a matter of numbers, and he has not accomplished the same thing. Greatness is a matter of accomplishment, and he does not have it. It's not there. 2 more, and we can have the conversation.
Love it. Last thing on this, Jed, was Movsar Evloev the second biggest winner in the division on Saturday?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think 100%. Arguably the biggest winner in the division. I mean, I guess Volk gets to be the biggest winner because he gets a belt, but it seems like Movsar is next. So Volk, you know, to both of their credits, both Volk and Lopez said prior to that fight they wanted to fight Movsar. Neither were like committed that this was going to happen. And Volk has since come out and said that like he wants to fight Movsar. He's not sure if the UFC wants that fight to happen, but I think that is what's going to happen. And this is where I will give Volk a ton of credit. And I gave Volk credit for most of his career about this because he deserves it. Volk has never shied away from the challenge. He's never been like, I don't want, no, let me fight, whatever. It's like, okay, I want to fight this dude. And I believe, paraphrasing slightly, look, like it's great for my legacy to beat an undefeated guy like Movsar Evloev. Like that's the fight that should happen. I believe that's probably, frankly, the fight that should have happened instead of Lopez, but neither here nor there. I think that's coming up. So 100%, I think he is the second biggest winner of Saturday night as a whole.
Jose, you had head nods. You made a little bit of a face there. How big of a winner was Movsar Evloev on Saturday?
We're just talking about featherweight division. I mean, if they stuck John Silva in a title fight right now, I don't think anyone would complain. Plus, John Silva beat the shit out of Bryce Mitchell and was probably the biggest superstar of the entire fight week. So, biggest winner in general, even including Volkanovski, might have been John Silva, because he might even have Dana White at the best man of his wedding and get some Brazilian pop star to sing for him. So, I'll say John Silva might just be the biggest winner, including Volk. Volk might be number 2, and then Movsar can be number 3. But I get what you guys are saying.
Yeah. It just, John was so red hot heading in, and the win just made him a little more red hot. A loss for him would have been catastrophic.
It was just like when you have someone that's red hot and you have a guy, it's like you have a guy that people really gravitate towards because he's like, his fans are the same fans as Yuri. They're just weird guys. They're just really wacky dudes that you just can't stop watching. And then they're fighting a guy that just, I'm not saying universally, because there is a sect of the internet and a sect of planet Earth that harbor the same views as him. But Bryce Mitchell was very clearly disliked in this fight. There was a F Bryce Mitchell. He got booed at the press conference. I don't know if it came across through the stream.
The booing came across. The F Bryce Mitchell didn't.
Oh, there was a big old F Bryce Mitchell during it, and then they switched when he did the little weird dog comment. So when you have a dance partner that everyone hates, and at the same time everyone just loves you, and then you literally choke the man unconscious, and then you go on like a national tour of a country that you've never been to, promoting like, yeah, I did this for your country, you're probably the biggest winner.
He had a hell of a night, and coincidentally enough, we're going to talk about how big of a night it was for John Silva in a matter of seconds, but let us move on.
I knew where we were going. Transitions for you.
What a guy. The point for round 2 goes to Passion Cells, Jed Meshew, 1-1. Nicely done. Volk knows ball. He gets it. Thank you for whoever's outside beeping the horn. But let's go back to John Silva. Yeah! Let's go back to John Silva, Jose Youngs, because, again, talk of the town. He was the self-proclaimed carrier of this card. Pretty much the entire build, kept saying it, was very confident, said some things. Some people called them cringe, but what matters most, Jose, is that the man talked his shit and he backed it up in the octagon and got over big. Just decimates Bryce Mitchell. This fight was competitive for maybe 5 seconds, and John just put it on him, man. He did everything he said he was going to do, tapped him. Bryce was like super unconscious, kind of uncomfortable, that overhead shot. You just see John barking over that man's unconscious body. Everything about this was so big. So you sort of touched on what this week, this performance, all of it did for him. And it's happening real fast, man.
Yeah.
Can you compare this rise of a guy like this to anybody
Yeah.
else that you've seen?
Freaking Yuri Prohaska. That's the guy.
Okay.
Like Jiri like kicks the door and beat Volkanovski and then went out there and melted Dom Reyes. And then just after that, it's just like, all right, we want to see this guy in these crazy fights. And that seems to be Jean Silva. Like Yuri got fast tracked to the title because of his crazy fighting style and his crazy wackiness. And I feel like that's going to be Jean Silva right there because doesn't speak English, but man, knockouts and submissions translates. All you got to do is throw on those glasses and literally bark into a microphone, and everyone pops. Like he is sports entertainment right there. Doesn't need to cut a promo. Just chokes a man unconscious, barks in front of his face, and then does his strange cries to Bruce Buffer, cries when the announcements are read, and then begs Dana White to be the best man at his wedding. It's Yuri, man. I feel like I'm not comparing their fighting styles, but it just it just reminds me as someone outside agrees with me. They're honking their horn. When Yuri knocked out Dom Reyes, that fight was just absolutely bananas, and no one really seems to care who John Silva fights. Like, yeah, the John Silva Bryce Mitchell fight was without question the most talked about fight of the entire fight week on YouTube, on social, and on site. I'm sure you guys had conversations about it too. Anything John Silva did printed views and printed clicks. There were a lot of featherweight fights, and John Silva was the superstar, but to compare him to someone, it's got to be Yuri. He's just it's got to, in recent times, to put because I'm sure they're like when Zombie was on the up and up, that was also just crazy too, especially when he pulled off that twister and then had that crazy fight against Poirier, and then it was just immediately thrown into a short notice fight against José Aldo. No one complained. So yeah, of recent memory, his fan base and the way he carries himself, and they even pose the same when they do their fight, like after media days and stuff. They take their portraits, same pose and everything, just. Strange dude that happens to be an incredible fist fighter.
Jed, as a founding member of the John Silva fan club, one, how proud were you on Saturday? And two, is Yuri the comparison? Because when Yuri came in, most of UFC fans, it happened at a time where like the pandemic was happening, and yes, the fan base grew exponentially around that period of time. But most people who were excited to see Yuri Prohaska fight knew him from Ryzen. We knew this guy was coming, and it translated immediately. John, I feel like, has come a bit more out of nowhere, but he just shot up big time. So maybe Yuri is an apt comparison. But what say you? Have you seen anything quite like John Silva? Can you compare him to anybody? And how proud of John Silva were you on Saturday, considering how much you have pushed this man?
I'm very proud of him. He's my boy, and he keeps doing the thing. It's a really good question. Yuri's not a bad answer, like individually, but I don't think it's perfect. And I'm trying to think of one that is, because the other part of it that is so like a part and parcel of this is that it's not just John Silva. He is part of a whole. Like, he is part of the Fighting Nerds camp. Him and Carlos Prates are really running point, despite Kyle Braulio also being a Fighting Nerds dude. It's like the two of them have really put this place into the spotlight with Braulio and Huffy and stuff there as well. And so like there is part of that where Yuri was just Yuri. Yuri didn't have like a running partner making the same like blast up to the top of the charts like Carlos Prates is. So it's a little bit unique in that fashion, and it's awesome. Like the whole Fighting Nerds thing is sick. We did listen to the ranking show. We did a whole breakdown of who, like, basically ordering who we think in the Fighting Nerds has the best chance to win a title at some point. So make sure you go check that out. And I maintain and still do that it was John Silva, because I think featherweight is much more open, right? Like he's going to be like, I don't even know what's he ranked now. Let me pull up the old UFC rankings and see. John Silva's ranked number 11 in the UFC rankings, but that's including Max Holloway, who's not a featherweight, and Ilia Topuria ranked above him. It's incredibly funny that Ilia Topuria is now ranked number 3 in the UFC's featherweight rankings. That is absolutely hysterical that they went ahead and did that. But so like he's functionally ranked number 5 in the UFC's featherweight rankings, and he easily has the most juice right now. Like before Saturday, Diego Lopes was the guy, right? And honestly, maybe Diego Lopes is the comp of like just sort of burst on the scene, very exciting. People sort of fell in love with them. John Silva is not the same, but he's in that same kind of position now where he's 1 win away from a title fight. And it wouldn't even be the craziest thing like in this modern day. It wouldn't be just, I'm not saying this would be deserved, but it wouldn't be the most insane thing in modern UFC history for them to be like, actually, Volkanovski's going to fight John Silva next because we hate Movsar Evloev. Like that is a thing that possibly could happen. It shouldn't, but it could. And it's awesome. Like I think he is definitely borderline cringe at a lot of points, but his in-cage performances when he's not slapping hands with his opponents are electric. And we saw that on Saturday. There's a reason I was so high on him coming off Contender Series, and a reason I'm still so high on him as a potential title challenger in the future.
I'll throw this question at you, Jed, because I think it is a fair question to ask at this point, because this fight was promoted and came together in a way that you were not a big, huge fan of. Bryce Mitchell saying the things that he said, Dana White calling him out on it, calling him an idiot, but then saying, hey, no repercussions. You just get to pay money to watch this man get his ass kicked in an octagon. Like that's his punishment. And that's good for you fans. That's the beauty of this sport. And this fight did build up excitement. Dana was sort of right with the fan base they were trying to get. People who don't watch fights but want real life drama, I guess, and that's what they got here. So my question to you, because I mentioned heading in that the loser of this fight is going to have a rough, short time, but this is MMA and people bounce back from crazy shit all the time. So my question is this: can Bryce Mitchell bounce back from this? From this build, the last several months, everything about this, the way he lost this fight, not being competitive really at all. Can he bounce back from this?
No. I mean, he shouldn't be in the UFC, but one, Bryce is probably like no longer at the peak of his powers anyway. The division's getting better. He is still a good, solid fighter. I would never take that away from him, but has always been a bit limited, right? Like he just doesn't he has an annoying striking game if you're fighting him, but it's not really a dangerous one. It's all to set up his grappling. The sport is progressing. He's getting older. I think that he's sort of naturally going to phase out anyway. But also, the UFC got one promotional thing out of Bryce Mitchell getting his ass beat. I just don't know how much leeway there is to that. And especially if he comes back and beats somebody, then okay, maybe he can go. But I just in general also feel like this is probably not going to coincide with a good run from him. He's got a lot of distractions outside of the world of fighting, which is never good. And the one win was Kron Gracie, who nobody even pretends to believe is like a UFC caliber fighter. So he could be in store for a pretty rough descent here.
Yeah, it's amazing how you were talking about Bryce heading into UFC 310. This was the fight, the Flat Earth Bowl, as you called it, between Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie, and that's what happened. But again, Jose, you were there. You heard the boos, you heard the chants, you saw it all unfold. Can Bryce Mitchell bounce back from what happened in the build and in the fight from UFC 314?
Bounce back in the sense that he'll definitely keep fighting in the UFC, and as much as awful person, just as much of the heinous thing that he says, he is a very good fighter. Does he belong in the UFC? Don't particularly want to see him in the UFC, but if he must stay, he's going to be guys in the top 15. That's just a matter of fact. Yeah, the Kron Gracie fight is what it is, but like the dude beat up Edson Barbosa, the dude beat up Dan Ige. Like he has names on his resume, and I feel like they're just going to give him these monsters, and they're just going to use him as a way to build other stars, if that makes sense, because everyone is going to want to tune in to see Bryce Mitchell lose. Like, there were a lot of people there that were booing Bryce Mitchell, even in Florida, which caught me off guard. A lot of them made videos about it. A lot of them are getting hate. One of my friends that works at another site is getting a whole bunch of hate about it from just the dregs of society. So, unfortunately, Bryce Mitchell has that sect covered. He will have fans for the rest of his life, and people are going to want to see him win, and people are going to want to see him lose. And if the UFC wants to keep him around, you got to give him fighters that they can, build off of, if that makes sense.
Last thing on more of, I guess, a positive note. Jose, who was the low-key MVP of UFC 314?
I mean, it's hard not to say Dom Reyes getting 3 in a row and just knocking a fool out in a main event of a pay-per-view. That was pretty cool. Who's the cat that had a really excellent fight against Tresean Gore?
Tulio.
That fight was really fun. And that guy is very well spoken. He was there with Norma Dumont, and his media day, I'm sure no one watched it because it was like the second and third fight of the night. That fight was a lot. That fight was a lot of fun. That fight was just sloppy nonsense, and he won. But the dude someone tried to rob him in Sao Paulo by punching his window in, and then saw it was Norma Dumont and Marco Tulio in the backseat, and they're like, this is a bad idea. And then gets to Miami and gets in a car crash, and then goes out there, has a very fun fight, a very exciting fight, sloppy nonsense that I really enjoyed. I think he's 1-0, 2-0 or something like that. Calls out Marvin Vettori. Not going to happen, but shoot your shot. At least he had a name. And then what does he use his media day for? To make a case for his girlfriend, Norma Dumont, to fight the winner of Kayla, Amanda, Juliana trilogy. So good on you, young man. You used your time wisely. Made the girlfriend happy, called out a popular fighter, or, Marvin Vettori is a known fighter, and then fought through adversity. So if we're talking low-key MVP, it's got to be Marco Tulio.
Where are you at, Jed? Who's the low-key MVP?
First, I want to shout out Dan Ige, that was dope, and he's a pretty cool guy. So always love to Dan Ige. Dan Ige, by the way, I was thinking about this because of some people tweeting some stuff earlier this week. Dan Ige is like literally the exact fighter who in 20 years people will be like, see, Diego Lopes didn't beat anybody. Dan Ige sucks or whatever. He's like the exact fighter. He's like, Ricardo Lamas is trash. José Aldo beat a bunch of bums. Like, actually, I don't know, man. I watched Dan Ige fight. He's good. Really, really good fighting. So shout out to Dan Ige, but I think the low-key hero of the card I think it has to be Chase Hooper. Like, Chase Hooper was a gimmick when he came. Like, he was the 18-year-old Raul Rosas Jr., the gimmick first, and wasn't even good. Like, when he came to the UFC, it was like, oh, this guy's he might not ever be good. Like, he looked bad at points in his UFC career. And then he comes out, and Jim Miller, who is still like a top 35-ish lightweight, he had to run a play and was doing some dope shit to him too. Like, he kept putting Jim Miller in the truck, like threatening twisters and just real wild shit against like a high level black belt in Jim Miller. Chase Hooper, since coming up to lightweight, has been lights out. Like, he is still so young. Like a couple of years ago, if you're like, Chase Hooper is going to be a top 15 lightweight, I'm like, he's going to get way better, I guess. And now I'm like, oh, I could see it. I could absolutely see the progression, the path of development he's on. Nothing but respect for the beloved Jim Miller. And then comes out and is even like, hey man, I'd like to not fight only old dudes. That'd be kind of cool. Like, 10 out of 10 weekend from Chase Hooper. Big shouts to him.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the more popular odd-no picks were Chase Hooper versus Michael Chandler after what transpired at UFC 314.
Oh, plus the gooner thing. Shout out to Sage Green in the chat, who's like, which I've now learned what gooning is on a meeting this week about it. But like, big weekend for Chase Hooper.
Do you think, because we had this conversation in the meeting room right after, if Chase Hooper beat Paddy Pimblett, would that be shocking?
No.
Yeah, Chase Hooper's
maybe
really
like
good.
Surprising, but not like
but Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper, it just seems to be so good at grappling. Like the second you lock up, like that seems like a bad place to be. No matter if you're standing or on the ground. I would obviously favor Paddy, and I would assume Paddy would win, but that would be a really interesting fight. Like, or like Chase versus Ignacio Bahamundes or Rufi, like tall, lanky guys too. Those are really, really fun fights.
Yeah. I think Paddy just kind of like hoss him around a little bit, but still his technique is
also
just so impressive.
But like the grapplings would be real fun.
Go watch Anything But Fighting starring Chase Hooper, because you can watch me just perpetually feel older and older and older at every sentence he says. It was like there was a UFC, like there's this UFC PR person named Hunter who like escorted Chase into the meeting room, and then he said, I asked Chase Hooper what his favorite Star Wars was, and he said, of the originals, probably, or his least favorite, and he goes, of the original Star Wars, probably Phantom Menace, and then you just hear Hunter just go, oh my God, like in the background. Oh man, that was
also that being his take is wild.
Yeah,
like
and he's
setting aside the old man part. Phantom Menace is like the worst Star Wars.
No, that's what he said. He goes, "What's your least favorite?" He said, "Phantom."
Oh, least favorite. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you know what? He said his favorite was the Clone Wars television show, which was after my time too.
Oh, Star Wars people love the Clone Wars TV show.
Yeah.
I never watched it. It's after me with you, but they all swear by it. So that sounds appropriate.
I asked him what his favorite, what's the first CD he ever bought, and he goes, "It's probably the last CD I ever bought," because again, he was after CDs, and he said the Halo 3 soundtrack, and I was like, "What a sentence! What a sentence that is!"
Wow. What a freaking legend. Man, I'd love to we should do like a Chase Hooper versus Grant Dawson BTL, because it would get real nerdy up in here, and I'm here for it. But
let me moderate that one. You guys can take a day off.
I would love that. Bizarro links to the nines. Yes, absolutely would watch that. All right, let's move on. Let's hit some lightning news and notes. Point for round 3 goes to stealing it with some on-site insight. Jose Youngs, 2-1. Nicely done. All right, let's get to some news and notes, some lightning round stuff. Jed, let's begin with you. One of the bigger moments that happened this past week in Miami took place at the UFC 316 press conference, and it had nothing to do. I mean, well, I guess somewhat to do, but the biggest moment had to do with somebody who was not even competing at UFC 316. Amanda Nunes says she is coming back, and she essentially has teased and pretty much confirmed she's going to fight the winner of Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison, which happens on that June card, June 7th in Newark, New Jersey. How big of a move is this, Jed Meshew, and how much does this help a division that, boy, really needs a boost, does it not?
I mean, it desperately needs the boost, and it certainly helps. Problem is, it could hurt the division in like a really substantive way as well. Shout out to Amanda, got inducted, or like got declared as inducted this weekend too, right? I didn't make that up. Okay. Nope. Making sure I wasn't conflating all the Amanda stuff. So shout out to her for that. One of the most obvious inclusions that could ever be. The 2025 class shaping up quite nicely for the Hall of Fame. Amanda Nunes coming back is obviously great business for one event. Whoever it is, whether it's the Pena trilogy or whether it's Kayla Harrison, that will be a big fight, right? Like that will be a great pay-per-view. We will all be very excited about it. And what comes after, Mike? What is next after that? Because either outcome is not great. One outcome is obviously much worse. If Amanda wins, is she really going to stick around? Like at that point, what does she have to do? Like what is there for her to do? So no, like if she wins the belt in a one-off and goes back to retirement, and then Kayla Harrison and Juliana Pena rematch for the vacant title. And that just feels like we spun our wheels to no real gain and to the actual detriment of the weight class overall. If she loses, that's great. Like for the promotion, right? Either Juliana Pena has now won the trilogy and is the unquestioned best bantamweight on earth, et cetera, et cetera. or Kayla Harrison has beaten Amanda Nunes. She is also the unquestioned best bantamweight on earth, and she can carry the division forward so far as it can be carried. But where does it go? There are no reinforcements coming. That is still the fundamental issue. There is no help on the horizon for this weight class. And like, this is like, again, I'm interested in the matchup. It's good largely. This is like peak Bellator matchmaking where this is the only thing we got. And we just got to hope that in 8 months after this is resolved, something new will have occurred, because they are not building new stars to come through really any of the women's weight classes, but certainly women's bantamweight is dire. And so it is a reprieve, but that is all that it is. And it could even be pretty negative if Amanda Nunes wins the belt.
Jose, what say you? The new Hall of Famer about to come back.
Yeah, it's basically everything Jed said was our first instinct. Like, it's always cool to see the best at what they do compete, but the money fight is Kayla. I think a lot of people are going to be picking her to beat Juliana probably pretty handedly. And then the trilogy fight sells itself. That's probably the second biggest fight you can make. But after that, like, what are you going to, like, Irene Aldana? Like, what are you going to give her? Norma Dumont? Like, that's a good fight as a fight. It's not a headliner. And Amanda's already beaten all the champions, all the former champions. The featherweight division doesn't exist. Obviously, people would want to see the Valentina trilogy, but seems to be Wei Li is going to go up to fight Valentina if Valentina gets through Manon in Montreal. And honestly, Valentina versus Wei Li is vastly more interesting to me than Valentina versus Amanda 3. So I don't really have much else to add. It's just I'm happy Amanda's coming back. I never really believed she retired the first time. I just think she was a little burnt out, and just from being hyper competitive, and had cleaned out the division, had another kid with Nina, and now she wants to come back and do the thing. And I'd probably favor her over both Kayla and Juliana if I'm being honest. I probably would have favored Kayla, and then I saw the fight against Ketlin Vieira, and that fight was very difficult. Not difficult, like Kayla won, but that was not the dominant Kayla we thought. Obviously, she lost to Larissa Pacheco, so the blueprint is out there, and I think Amanda Nunes' IQ is just second to none in the women's division. I would favor Amanda over both of them, especially with the time off of not having to cut all that weight. But yeah, exciting for one fight. And then after that, she's going to retire. And then where does Kayla and Juliana go from there? Like, if Kayla wins, because it's honestly for all three women. Like, if Kayla wins and then beats Amanda, what's left for Kayla? If Juliana wins and then beats Amanda, what's left for Juliana? Like, there's no money fight after that there's just nothing. So it'll be a fun for one fight. And then after that, who knows?
I mean, there's Norma Dumont. So shout out to homie for big upping her. But like, we're talking Norma Dumont, Macy Chiesa. Like, those are not big money fights.
And does Raquel have a fight coming up?
No.
Okay.
Tisha does.
That's right. Coming up. Who's Tisha fighting?
She is fighting. Shit. I just looked this up too. She's fighting, I believe, on that Apex card on May 17th. She is fighting Luana Pinheiro, maybe? Yep, Luana Pinheiro.
That sounds right.
It sounds about right. Last thing we'll touch on. I was going to touch on the UFC 316 press conference, but we don't need to do that. Let's talk about UFC Baku, June 21st, Jose. We got the main event, Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree, because what better place to have those two dudes fight each other than in Azerbaijan. We also found out the return of Kyoji Horiguchi is official.
That's right.
He will fight Tagir Ulanbekov, of all people.
Gotta do
Jose, thoughts on this event, the fights that were announced, etc.
I mean, welcome back, Kyoji Horiguchi. Here is a dude that is either going to make the fight real ugly or real dominant. Like, I mean, it's a good fight. As a martial arts competition, I actually do like Tagir Ulanbekov versus Kyoji Horiguchi. I would just rather prefer Kyoji Horiguchi just walk right into a title shot because he deserves it. I'm glad they rebooked Jamal versus Khalil Roundtree. It is very strange that it's in Baku and Azerbaijan because, famous Baku native Jamal Hill is certainly going to push viewers to watch. And he's coming off a loss or a couple losses. Khalil Rountree coming off a loss. And I mean, it's an exciting fight in terms of striking. Again, I'm glad it's happening. It is very strange that it's happening in Baku, because I know there's that rumored Fiziev versus Ignacio Bahamondes. That feels more like a main event to me. Fiziev I don't know exactly where Fiziev is from. I don't want to misplace him. But that seems more like a main event for me, especially with Ignacio Bahamondes just being an absolute mauler at lightweight. But the biggest story for me is I wish Kyoji Horiguchi just walked right into a title shot. Seems strange they're giving him Tagir, because Tagir never even really struck me as a guy they were trying to build up. Like if they made Manel Kape versus Kyoji Horiguchi, I know Manel Kape is fighting Brandon Royval, like that fight would be more interesting to me, or Brandon Royval versus Kyoji Horiguchi. It just seems like a strange matchup to me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, Kyoji versus Brandon Moreno. I mean, there's so much fun we could have.
I mean,
here.
I get what they're doing. Like if Kyoji wins, or if Tagir Ulanbekov wins, you could give in. They could just do the Pantoja fight in Abu Dhabi, maybe, or Kyoji wins. They could. I don't know. It's a strange setup.
Yes, Jed, what say you? By the way, the Fiziev Bahamondes fight rumored.
Yeah,
nothing really
that is
to
rumored.
that at the moment. It is a fight that could happen. They're obviously, first of all, Fiziev fighting on that card is probably just the most important thing, because he basically is from there. So throwing him on that card is of huge importance. Bahamondes would be super interesting. I know that's a name that they are interested in, and I know that's a name the UFC seemed interested in, at least short term. But as of this very moment, there's no official fight offer, there's no contracts, etc. But that'd be a damn good one. But Jed, UFC Baku, June 21st, a week after the UFC's return to Atlanta. Hill, Rountree, Ulanbekov, Horiguchi, and some other stuff that I'm sure you will point out.
Some other stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, the Hill fight is cool. Like that's just, we all thought that when it was KC. It was like, oh, this is a really fun fight. I don't really know like what it's for, because light heavyweight title picture is a bit muddy right now. Well, it's just a fun fight on the merits, great matchmaking. And so it doesn't really make sense to be in Baku, but it's just as fine. It's not like it had a special connection to Kansas City either. So perfectly fine for it to run in Baku. The Kyoji thing is awful.
Yeah.
It's the second worst piece of matchmaking the UFC's done this year, because nothing will be worse than José Aldo Amin Zahabi, which is just a travesty of fight booking. But this is also a travesty of fight booking, right? Because like here's Tagir Ulanbekov, a really hard opponent who most people do not know, and it's not even like that easy to look good against him, Kyoji Horiguchi. Right. Have fun in Baku, because this is all the Baku the millions of Azerbaijani fans are here for Kyoji Horiguchi. It just is it does not make any sense at all beyond, oh, Kyoji Horiguchi is back. Let's just pick somebody in the top 10 and throw him on not the Apex, which I guess that's better than nothing. Putting him in the Apex would have been worse. So this is better than that, I suppose. But like there were just so many other ways to have fun with Kyoji, or just run him right to a title fight. Who cares? Like, frankly, he and Pantoja are kind of building that up already, despite like training together actively. Like they have both given multiple interviews saying that like, yeah, we'd probably do it if it's for title. We'd have to work around it at American Top Team, but that'd be fine. And just like cheesing in photos, like fake punching each other, Rocky 3 style or whatever in photos. Like they're setting this up, and instead you book a matchup that doesn't prevent it from happening in the future, right? Like if he beats Tagir Ulanbekov, they can run it. The rules don't really matter at flyweight. But also it's not like, oh, he wins this, very obviously we're making this next title fight. Like Brandon Moreno just made all the sense in the world, and you could just hold him until they go to Guadalajara, and that would be fine. But we're doing this, and it's fine. Ultimately, Kyoji's back, and that rocks.
Yeah. Touche. All right. Time to move on. That is June 21st. Today is April 17th. The point for round number 4 goes to Jed Meshew. 2-2. Nicely done. All right, let's get into it. Final questions. Time for the knockout round. 60 seconds for each competitor to answer said question, and it is going to be a fun one. So, Jed, we will begin with you. Do you want to go first? Do you want to pass this over to Jose?
I'll go first. Screw it.
All right. Well, as we mentioned at the top of the program, we're going to be doing a Wrestlemania watch party both Saturday and Sunday. It is a big event.
I hope this is about pro wrestling. I'm gonna bomb.
Oh, don't you worry, Jed. We have made this very fair, and
Okay.
we are going to tap into the part of your brain that people just love, that fight circusy type of thing that we're thinking of. So my question for you, Jed Meshew, if you could book a pro wrestling match between UFC or MMA fighters, past, present, future, however, at WrestleMania in a pro wrestling style gimmick matchup, who would you book and how would you do it? 60 seconds on the clock. Have some fun, my friend. Go.
A pro wrestling gimmick matchup. I don't know enough pro wrestling gimmicks, and now I'm looking through like UFC. I'm trying to think of like what's the best pro wrestling gimmick, because the one I know is Royal Rumble, and that is a great gimmick, but that feels like that's a little too hard to structure. I don't know. The table, ladders, and chairs match. Let's go that, because that seems fun. Let's get a lot of foreign objects in there. And look, I think that the obvious choice for me will just be porting over the fight I want to see with two very weirdo personalities into a wrestling ring. And you give them tables, ladders, and chairs. They're both creative psychopaths, so they could probably find some cool things to do with those. I'm speaking, of course, about Yuri Prohashka and Dricus Duplessis, my two large adult children, who I very much want to see fist fight one another someday. But I would also watch them like throw each other through flaming tables and off of ladders and hit each other with chairs, because that just seems like good old-fashioned American fun. So give me that DDP versus Yuri TLC match.
Wow. All right. See, I knew you would get there. I might take you.
I really had to talk through it.
That read like that sounded like he was reading a Mad Lib that a 10-year-old spilled out. Name fighter, Dricus Duplessis. Name another fighter, Yuri. Name a wrestling thing, TLC. There you go.
That's the only one. Like, I know that there are other gimmicks. I just don't know the other wrestling gimmicks beyond Royal Rumble and tables, ladders, and chairs matchups.
That TLC with Yuri and DDP would be really good. But Jose, maybe advantage you here, but same question for you. 60 seconds on the and go.
Everyone will hate this match because it's for people that like to see good old-fashioned catch wrestling. I want Elimination Chamber. I need Shayna Baszler in it. I need Josh Barnett in it. I need Kazushi Sakuraba in it. I need Shinsuke Nakamura. I mean, you could even throw Tank Abbott in there. He was in WCW just so we could throw someone to the lambs and get choked unconscious. You could throw Ken Shamrock in there. He had the Intercontinental Champion and then took a full-on chair to the face from The Rock. Throw Matt Riddle in there, too. We can make this. If you have catch wrestling experience and you fought in MMA and you have any sort of professional wrestling experience, I'm going to throw you into a device that is completely made of chains and you can't escape. Not that you'll need it, because you'll just do very fun and very technical catch wrestling in the middle of a chain link fence. That sentence itself just sells it right there. That's what I want. Catch wrestling in an elimination chamber.
I'll tell you what.
Because Sakuraba's the right. I didn't even think about Sakuraba. It was just like the most obvious choice.
That's right. Don Fry. You could throw in there Dan Severin. Kid Cash had a couple of fights, if I remember correctly. China probably had an MMA fight at some point back in the day. Batista. Shout out Dave Batista. 1-0. 1-0. Fought in Providence, Rhode Island. Joe Lozon.
Who's that other gigantic fucking like former
Nathan Jones had an MMA fight. Star of Mad Max Fury Road.
Who's the other wrestler who's like an army wrestler who's just like the biggest man that's ever been, who fought like twice for Strikeforce? There you go, Bobby Lashley. Get that dude in.
That's right. Bob Sapp.
That man is one of the biggest human beings that's ever been.
I mean, technically Sexy Star. It had a couple fights in had a cup of coffee and kombucha American, whatever you call it. Same as Alberto Del Rio. Jake Hager.
Oh, I remember that weirdo in Bellator. Derek Lewis feels like he might.
None
do
of
well
us
in
mentioned
wrestling.
famously good at fighting and wrestling Ronda Rousey.
Derek Lewis could be the ring announcer. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So cast your votes for that and for this matchup. Again, just setting the table for
I'm glad
this weekend.
that no one
WrestleMania 41.
I'm glad no one mentioned Brock or Ronda because that felt like a cop out. You know what I'm saying? Because they were very good at both.
I didn't even remotely think about actually doing like real pro wrestlers, if that tells you where my head was. We're like, who are fighters who would do okay?
Mike? Do you remember Sean O'Hare?
Yes, he fought.
Who did he fight? He fought in when Pride was in L.A. when they did that Coliseum card. Did they not?
No, in Vegas.
I think
in Vegas. That's
Vegas.
Yeah. He in the K1, right?
Yeah.
Who did he fight?
I don't remember.
No one that, but he definitely fought and he definitely lost by knockout.
Yeah.
And I think he was like 0-6 or something.
He fought Rumble and The Rock. I don't remember who he fought.
Did he fight Rumble and The Rock?
Shout out to Rumble and The Rock.
Yeah. Shout out.
What a promotion.
Some fun cards. But Casey is here with full sleeves and a hood on.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right.
It will be winter for 6 more weeks.
Well, we have our votes.
I wonder who won.
Your winner today.
No.
You know what? I don't care what the voters say. When you mention Catch Wrestling and Josh Barnett, you are my winner. You know how to do
That's
it.
Right.
Jose Young, you're the winner. God dang it.
I know. See?
Wow.
You got to pander.
Plenty of judges.
What a move.
You have to pander to the judges. Marab did it in round 5.
Jose,
I just pulled a Marab. I just catered to the judges at the end.
Wow. Just a brilliant move right there. We've seen some brilliance on this program. Our old friend New York Rick used to be brilliant. He would be, non-ego. The non-ego would come out. He'd sit there and put over the other guy. Vote for him. And he always got the baby face votes. But Jose manipulating the game, manipulating the mind of Casey Leydon. No judge is going to
way
favor.
too much time in Florida.
Okay. Yes, you have. Talk about what you want to talk about here. The floor is yours, my friend.
Shoot, man. I don't know. It's a weird week that there's no fights, but WrestleMania will be fun. You know what I'm going to use my time for? You should go to your local bookstore and pre-order. What is it? Our good friend Mark Raimondi has a new book coming out about the NWO. He's been working on it for literally years. Every time I'd see him at a fight, he'd have to go right back to his hotel and watch every single WCW Nitro in the world. And then I'd see him the next day. He'd be like, oh my God, I'm at the Wolfpack part. I'm at the Wolfpack area. It's been so long. And now it's finally coming out. I'm very excited to read it. So that's what I'll use my floor for. Go buy Mark Raimondi's book. Go pre-order it. It will be a lot of fun.
Casey has it right there on the bottom.
Yeah, I haven't got it yet. What is it? Say hello to the bad guys. Is that what it's called?
You got an advance copy? Raimondi lives a block from me and didn't give me an
I don't
want
to like poo-poo you too much, Jed, but I might have an advance copy.
What in the world? What in the world?
I literally asked him. He was like, "Go order it."
He's right there.
Like, what the hell, man?
Mark Raimondi was literally in the Casey circle.
He's right here. He's right here. Wait, hold on.
Hi, Mark.
Hey!
He took him up.
That's so funny.
Wow.
He can't hear you.
Go read the book,
This is
everybody.
not planned either.
Well, we can't read it. It's not out until June.
Yeah.
Well,
unless you have an advanced copy, which Casey has. So
I got right here.
I genuinely think my copy is in my mailroom right now.
There you go.
Casey, tell Mark I'm going to go egg his house.
Hey, Mark, your house is getting egged in about 5 minutes after the show ends.
Well, not eggs. Eggs are too expensive now.
Eggs are too
TP.
I was going to say, what are they doing down in the land that you can afford to throw eggs?
Can't be throwing eggs.
Casey, hit the music. Time to get on out of here. We appreciate all of you for joining us once again. Join us this weekend. Whether you're a wrestling fan or not a wrestling fan, we'll all have fun watching WrestleMania 41 and watch parties, just very chill. It's just going to be good vibes, good times all around. So thank you all very much. For Jose, for Jed, for Casey, for Mark Ramundi even, author extraordinaire, I am Mike Heck, back next week to get you ready for UFC Kansas City. Yes, Ian Machado, Gary versus Carlos Bratches. Get your advanced copy of Say Hello to the Bad Guys. We'll see you next week. Love you all. Good night, everybody.
Love y'all. Mike, embrace
This
y'all.
has been
You live in
Between
the
the
South
Links,
now.
an MMA fighting
Embrace the
production
contraction.
on the Vox Media Network.